We're going to be studying in Daniel chapter 2. In the 2nd year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His mind was troubled, and he could not sleep. So the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king, he said to them, "I have had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means." Then the astrologers answered the king, "May the king live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will interpret it." The king replied to the astrologers, "This is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your houses turned into piles of rubble. But if you tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it for me." So this is something that's going to really upset his officials and astrologers and the people that are in charge right now as magicians and everyone, because he's asking them to do something that's impossible. There's no way that somebody can know what a dream was that somebody had at night unless there was a God that's going to reveal it. Well, they don't worship the true God, so they're not going to be able to get the interpretation. And Nebuchadnezzar's pretty wise here that this is a test to see if the interpretation will be true, because he knows if they can tell him the dream, then he'll have confidence to know that their interpretation is true as well. But they're not going to be able to. We'll see how that continues in verse 7. Once more they replied, "Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will interpret it." Then the king answered, "I am certain that you are trying to gain time because you realize that this is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me the dream, there is only one penalty for you. You have conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then tell me the dream, and I will know that you can interpret it for me." The astrologers answered the king, "There is no one on earth who can do what the king asks. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of a magician or enchanter or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods. They do not live among humans." This made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. So Daniel and his friends, remember, this is their 2nd year of captivity. During the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar, it's also going to be the 2nd year of their captivity. And they're they're wise already. They already have a relationship with the king, but they're not quite ready yet to be through with all their studies and everything. But the king has already been impressed with their abilities. So what's Daniel going to do? He's going to have a lot of boldness. Listen to what he says. Verse 14, when Arioch the commander and the king's guard had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. He asked the king's officer, "Why did the king issue such a harsh decree?" Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel. At this, Daniel went in to the king and asked for time so that he might interpret the dream for him. Here he is, they think he went into captivity at the age of 16 or 17. So here he is, only a year later. He's like 17 or 18 years old, somewhere around there. And he's got the boldness and the courage to question the official that's coming to him, but not only to question him and ask him for the reason of why this is happening, but he's willing to go talk to the king. He didn't get summoned by the king. He has the boldness to ask if he can go talk to him. And because Daniel already is being favored by this king, he's going to grant his request. It doesn't tell us that, but he is. He's going to allow Daniel to have that time that he's requesting. Verse 17. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Remember, their Babylonian names are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Verse 18. He urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven and said, "Praise be to the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings, means takes them down, and he raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells within him. I thank and praise you, God of my ancestors. You have given me wisdom and power. You have made known to me what we asked of you, and you have made known to us the dream of the king." Daniel's using the plural form because remember, his friends are also praying that Daniel will get the interpretation. And Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's prayers have been heard by God. He gives him the vision. He also gives him the interpretation. So he knows that God has just saved their lives, and he's praising God for listening to his prayer, for giving him that wisdom to be able to talk to Nebuchadnezzar about it. And so he's ready the next day to be able to go before the king. Verse 24, Then Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said to him, "Do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret his dream for him." Arioch took Daniel to the king at once and said, "I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can tell the king what his dream means." The king asked Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, that's his Babylonian name, Daniel was his Hebrew name, "Are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it?" Daniel replied, "No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dream and the visions that passed through your mind as you were lying in bed are these." Okay, before we go through the vision, look at who Daniel is giving credit to for understanding the dream and the interpretation. He puts wise men in there. He would be considered the wise men. He's saying no wise men can do this, no magician, no enchanter. Only the God of heaven could give an interpretation like that. So he does not take any credit for what he's about to tell King Nebuchadnezzar. He knows he was only able to get that through the God of heaven, and he's making that clear to King Nebuchadnezzar so that he won't try to act like Daniel deserves all this praise, glory, and honor. He wants the glory to go to the King of Israel, to the God of Israel. 29. As your majesty was lying there, your mind turned to things to come, and the revealer of mysteries showed you what is going to happen. This is amazing. When you think of a king who is an idol worshiper, who is not of the Hebrew or Israelite nation, that he is given this vision of things that were to come, and it's going to be kingdoms that are to come after his kingdom, all the way up to the time when Jesus is going to come back the second time. Why would Jesus choose a heathen king to reveal something like this to? We don't always understand, but God does. And maybe it's to help us to understand that God even hears and sees, again, the heathens, and he's got purposes even for them that help bring about his will, and he's using them at times to bring about his will. We saw that with Pharaoh, king in Egypt, that he was raised up for just a time as that when Moses was there. And God has all people, even if they aren't even understanding their purpose for God, he can even use those Gentiles who don't even understand about him for his glory and for his purpose. Okay, verse 30. As for me, this mystery has been revealed to me, not because I have greater wisdom than anyone else, but so that your majesty may know the interpretation and that you may understand what went through your mind. So he's saying it's not, this whole interpretation and understanding of this dream is not because of me or anything to do with me. It has to do with the fact that God wants you, Nebuchadnezzar, to understand what's going to happen at the end and what you were dreaming about so that you won't be troubled by it. Verse 31. Your Majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. While you were watching, a rock, representing Jesus, was cut out, but not by human hands, from the Father. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken to pieces and became like chaff on a threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace, but the rock, Jesus, that struck the statue became a huge mountain, meaning his kingdom is going to be huge, and it filled the whole earth. Verse 36. This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. So that was the dream. He just got done explaining the dream of what Nebuchadnezzar was seeing in his mind, and he did get it right. That's why King Nebuchadnezzar is going to listen to this interpretation and know that it's true. Whatever Daniel's telling him, he knows that he got this understanding from the true God. Verse 36. This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. Your Majesty, you are the King of Kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion and power and might and glory. In your hands he has placed all mankind and the beasts of the field and the birds in the sky. Wherever they live, he has made you ruler over them all. You are that head of gold. Okay, so that kingdom that represents the head of gold is his kingdom. He's the first one that is being revealed here. And it's talking about him having authority over this huge part of the earth, and not just the earth and the people in his kingdom, but it says that God even placed the beasts of the field and the birds of the sky in his authority. So this is showing how much power Nebuchadnezzar had during the time of his kingdom. Verse 39. After you, another kingdom will arise, inferior to yours. So what's the next kingdom? I had already talked about it in the last chapter in Daniel 1:21. Daniel is going to remain in power as a second in command until the first year of King Cyrus, and he is the king of the Medo-Persia government. So once Babylon has been conquered, the Babylonian kingdom, it's Cyrus that's going to be the first king. Daniel's going to serve him, but I think because of his age, he's going to end up retiring. He's still going to live in Babylon because it talks about Daniel receiving another vision while he's living there in Babylon. And it's in the third year of King Cyrus, but it doesn't show that he is serving the king anymore. And it could be health reasons. He's probably like 87, 88, close to 90 years old by this time. So maybe he's having some health issues, but he doesn't ever go back. He could have gone back after the 70 years were up, but he was older, and for some reason he wasn't one of the ones that decided to go back to Jerusalem after they were led out of captivity. Okay, the third kingdom is coming next in verse 39. Next, a third kingdom, one of bronze, will rule over the whole earth. Well, we're going to learn in the interpretation. It names the first three kingdoms. The third one is the Grecian Empire. So king number one, the head, Nebuchadnezzar. The second empire of the silver is the Medo-Persian. The third of bronze is the Grecian Empire. The fourth, it doesn't tell us what the king is, what area he's from, but it says that it's going to be the last kingdom. The fourth kingdom is going to be the last kingdom on earth that is going to be made up of a ruler with 10 toes. That represents 10 kings that are a part of the Antichrist coalition. And these kings are not going to be remaining united. We're going to see that as we keep reading. Verse 40, Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, for iron breaks and smashes everything. And as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all the others. So it's talking about all the others, meaning the Medo-Persian, the Babylonian, all the other ones that had been there. It sounds like it's talking about that he, in the Grecian one, he's going to have authority over all those kingdoms. Verse 41. Just as you saw that the feet and the toes were partly of baked clay and partly of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom, yet it will have some of the strength of iron in it, even as you saw iron mixed with clay. As the toes were partly iron and partly clay, so this kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. So here's where we learn that there's some division going on amongst these 10 kings. And we do learn that later on, too, in some of the chapters where it talks about this Antichrist, that he's going to have to subdue 3 of the kings, that they're trying to get out of control. He's having to get them under control. He's subduing them. So it does seem like there's some of them that want to have an uprising. They don't really like it that the Antichrist is taking control over that 4th kingdom, because they had control over it until this 11th king came on the scene and started subduing them all. Now the other 7 seem like they're going along with it, but there's going to be 3 that are not very happy about having to be under control of the Antichrist. They wanted to be the ones at the top. Okay, verse 43. And just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united any more than iron mixes with clay. In the time of those kings, meaning the 10 kings and the Antichrist, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it will itself endure forever. This is the meaning of the vision of the rock cut out of a mountain, which again represents Jesus, but not by human hands, a rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces. So it sounds like there's still, again, even though some of those empires have been taken over, because we're way in the future, there's still going to be leaders from those areas that are going to be in power when Jesus comes to destroy all these other kingdoms. He's going to allow actually the 3 kingdoms, some of the people from those 3 kingdoms to still survive, it says later on in one of the visions, but he is not going to allow them to have the power that they had. Everybody's going to be being ruled by King Jesus. And us, as the resurrected saints that have been faithful, we get to reign and rule under his authority in different parts of the world. But it's Jesus that's the only king on the earth at that time. There'll be no other kings that are allowed on the earth from that time forward. The great God has shown the king what will take place in the future. The dream is true and its interpretation is trustworthy. So when Daniel was given the interpretation, it's trustworthy and it's true. We can't come along and start changing it years later because it doesn't fit into what we think is supposed to happen at the end. I've heard a lot of people say that the 4th kingdom will be Rome, because after the Grecian Empire was destroyed, the Roman army and the Roman Empire took over. But that has been taken out of power for many, many years. And when it talks about this Antichrist, it says he's a king of the north. Well, if it was from Rome, Rome is from the west. It's part of the western part of the world. So the fact that they're calling him the king of the north, if you go in Daniel 11, where it starts talking about all the different kings from the north, in the past they've been from the Syrian, Turkey area. So I believe that the Antichrist is going to be from that empire, because it's following an order from the past. If we keep following those kings that have been from the Seleucid dynasty, those are all in the area of what we would call modern-day Syria or Turkey. And time will tell as we get closer, but that's what I think it's going to be, because Rome doesn't fit. Verse 46. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before Daniel and paid him honor and ordered that an offering and incense be presented to him. The king said to Daniel, "Surely your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery." Well, he's giving Daniel credit again. Remember, Daniel wanted God to get the credit. And he will give God some honor, because listen to the rest of this chapter. Verse 48. Then the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished many gifts on him. He made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and placed him in charge of all its wise men. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego administrators over the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained at the royal court. So they're getting promotions. Daniel gets promoted to have a high position at the palace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are going out to one of the provinces, so one of the different areas outside of the palace. And they get to be watching over them and being the people there and being administrators over there. But when we pick up in later on, it's going to say that he wants to honor the God of Daniel. So he does recognize that the God of Daniel deserves some praise, glory, and honor as well.